Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of how to be sub 2 on 5x5. In this part I'm going to be going over some general tips, and in a lot of ways these are going to be the quick fixes of the series. And you might think that some of these tips are pretty trivial, but they actually do set a foundation for the rest of the series. So I do encourage you to watch the entire video, even though it might not help you as much as you hope. So just to get this out of the way, hardware is incredibly important for 5x5. I know cubers really like to say that it's the cuber, not the cube, especially for 3x3. But I've never been a strong believer of that. I think it's both the cuber and the cube. And for 5x5 in particular, hardware is very important. You do not want to use something like a Rubik's Brand or a QJ or a YJ. You want to use either a V-Cube or a ShengShou, at least at the time of this video. V-Cube is kind of outdated. People tend not to use this anymore because it's expensive, it's not adjustable, it has just a lot of issues, but they do turn out pretty nice if you work with them for a while. On the other hand, ShengShous are cheap, they work great out of the box, and the ability to mod them into something like this is incredible. So I do recommend the ShengShou over the V-Cube, but some of you probably already have a V-Cube, and there's no reason to buy a ShengShou. V-Cubes are plenty fine, and you don't need so many 5x5s. But if you don't have any 5x5, or if you have something like a QJ or YJ, I would get a ShengShou and just work with this one because, again, it is so much cheaper and of superior quality compared to the V-Cube. That's pretty much all I wanted to say about the hardware, so let's actually get to the next tip. So this next tip you might disagree with, and I'm just going to say that up front. The tip is to turn faster, and I don't even care whether or not you pause, just turn the cube faster. I give this tip to a lot of people and they always question me. They think it's just a crazy tip that can't possibly work. Especially on 3x3, people always say to turn slowly, look ahead, but on 5x5 this is a completely different sort of mindset that you have to have, in my opinion. And for 5x5, pauses are okay. I still have pauses, I'm well below sub 2. It's really not a huge deal. What tends to happen with people who do slow turning and look ahead on 5x5 is they do the slow turning, they do that really, really well. Unfortunately, they still have pauses, so they pretty much end up with slow turning plus pauses, and that's really the worst of both worlds. So a quick fix really is to turn faster, and if you pause, you pause. It really doesn't matter that much, and you'll just have to take my word for it. Do an average of 5 or 12 and turn as quickly as you can and see what kind of times you get. What does tend to happen though is that you turn really quickly the first 20 or 30 seconds, but then you sort of go into autopilot mode and you slow down your turning, and then you realize, well, fast turning isn't giving me better times, and that's because of the autopilot. So make sure that if you do try it, turn quickly throughout the entire solve and see what happens. Now I know a lot of you will start pausing because of that, and that's totally okay. If you're worried about look ahead on 5x5, I will tell you from personal experience that I used to have a ton of pauses and they just go away over time. I've never practiced look ahead independently before. It has always come just from solving the puzzle more, and it just naturally comes. So definitely give it a shot. Turn as quickly as you can, see what times you get. If you're averaging around 213 or 230, fast turning might actually get you sub 2. I'm not joking. I remember when I was averaging 210, I did the whole slow turning with look ahead thing. One day I was like, you know what, just let me turn quickly, see what happens, and I kept getting sub 2 times. I can't say for sure that this will work for you, but it definitely worked for me, and like I said, it's a quick fix. There's nothing new to learn, just a different style of turning, I guess, and you'll just have to try it. So the third and final tip isn't really a tip, but it's kind of a foreshadowing for what's to come in the series, and it's something that you should think about before you watch part 3 and 4, and that's the idea of filters. So what I mean by filter is, say on 3x3, when people solve 3x3, especially if you do white cross or just a single color cross and you're not color neutral, you always have a first filter. For me, that's white. I always see the white pieces first, right, for the cross, but then I continue to look for the white pieces because I know for F2L it's going to be a white corner. So I completely block out anything with yellow because if it has yellow, it can't be in the F2L. But then on the last layer, you switch filters. So now you've basically finished everything to do with white. The first two layers depended on the white pieces, and now that you've finished that, you completely ignore the white, you look at only the yellow, and so this is your second filter. Notice how your second filter is the opposite color of your first. And this is the same principle that I want you to apply to 5x5. The idea of filters will be explained more in-depthly in parts 3 and 4, but just to give you a general idea, when you do centers, you want to do your filter colors first. So for me, that's white and yellow centers first. And then for edge pairing, you want to do the white and yellow edges first as well. And the primary reason for this is so that you can save the time it takes for you to make a decision. And you might think that's really insignificant because you might have really fast reflexes, but 5x5 is a lot of moves and you waste a lot of time just thinking about what you want to do. And if you have white and yellow as your default colors or your filters, that just eliminates the need for you to actually think, and it makes it a much more streamlined way of solving 5x5. So here, for instance, there's this green and yellow. I'm just going to immediately replace with blue and yellow. And you can see I already have two more yellow Tredge pieces that I can use. The other reason for this is it makes bookkeeping very easy. For edges, if you do the white and yellow edges first, or your two filter colors first, you know that you have 4 empty slots on the top and 4 on the bottom, and there's 4 of them that are going to be white. If you're choosing white and yellow as your filters, you have 4 white and you have 4 yellow, and that's going to be your first 8 edges. So it's very easy to do bookkeeping. You know that if you finished all of your filter color edges, then you're done with the first 8 edges. You don't have to count how many more you have to do or how many you've done. It's just more streamlined, and it really dumbs down the method in a lot of ways, but that's kind of how I got to sub 2, is by making it more automated, less decision making, and you might think that it's kind of a silly idea, but it works, and yeah, I would give it a try. So a quick recap of this video. First, you want to have decent hardware. I recommend a ShengXiao 5x5. Whether or not you mod it doesn't matter too much, as long as you do have something usable. A VQ5 is also a fine option. The second tip is to turn faster. This seems very counterintuitive because you don't want any pauses, but pauses are actually okay in my opinion. So give it a go. Do like an average of 5 or average of 12 with fast turning, and remember that you don't want to slow down halfway. You don't want to go in autopilot mode, and see what kind of times you get. And thirdly, just start thinking about the idea of filters. Find the 2 colors that really pop out at you. In general, they're going to be the cross color and the last layer color if you use CFOP, and that will be the basis for the remainder of the series. So you don't necessarily have to practice anything with filters for now, but just at least think about them and practice the fast turning and see what happens. So thank you for watching part 2 of this series. I realize some of the tips may have seemed really trivial to you, but starting with parts 3 and 4, where we actually go into centers and edges, I will be giving a lot of concrete examples of cases, and I know a lot of you are just waiting for that. But trust me when I say that this part is probably the most important, because it really does set the foundation for the rest of the series. So thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please do, so that you know when the next parts do come out. And yeah, toodles.